The room was full of laughter and clinking glasses, but it all stopped with one sentence. "This is the end for us. I found someone new." David Carter's words cut through the air like broken glass. In an instant, the joyful atmosphere of our son's wedding dinner collapsed into silence. Guests froze with forks halfway to their mouths, the string quartet faltered mid-note, and the chandeliers above seemed to shine a little harsher. I sat there in my blue dress, my hands folded neatly in my lap. After 34 years of marriage, my husband had chosen this night, of all nights, to end everything. His announcement wasn't a mistake or a slip of the tongue. It was carefully planned, designed to humiliate me while our friends, relatives, and even our son watched. Across the table sat Rebecca Moore, his secretary. Her red dress caught the light as she gave me the smallest, most satisfied smile. She knew. She had been waiting for this moment, savoring my supposed downfall. Every eye in the room turned to me, expecting a breakdown, tears, or a storm of anger. But instead, I gave them something different. I straightened my shoulders and smiled faintly. "Thank you for the heads up," I said. My voice was steady, almost calm. And then, with deliberate care, I reached into my purse and placed a white envelope next to David's plate. He looked at it with sudden unease, his confidence cracking for the first time all evening. That was the moment everything shifted. The wedding dinner became the stage not for my humiliation, but for the first act of a plan I had been quietly building for half a year. My name is Linda Carter. I am 59 years old, and this is the story of how betrayal turned into my beginning. When people looked at David and me from the outside, they thought we had the perfect marriage. 34 years together, 2 children raised into adulthood, a home that looked warm and inviting from the street, but perfect pictures often hide cracks, and ours were wide enough to swallow my dreams whole. From the very beginning, I stepped into the role of caretaker, while David switched jobs, chasing opportunities that always seemed just a little shinier than the last. I held down steady work at the local bank. I kept the mortgage paid, the lights on, and the pantry full. Every late bill notice, every unexpected expense, somehow landed on my shoulders. I told myself that was what a good wife did. She held the family together no matter what storms came. There were years when David poured his energy into big ideas. One year it was a motorcycle he just had to have to feel young again. Another year it was his dream of becoming an artist, which lasted all of 3 months before he abandoned his canvases in the garage. While he experimented with hobbies, I worked extra shifts to make sure our son, Ethan, had the braces he needed, and our daughter Emily could take piano lessons she loved so much. I was proud of my children, and their smiles reminded me that my sacrifices mattered, even if no one else noticed. But quietly, there was a cost. For decades, I put my own dreams on a shelf. I had always wanted to open a bakery, a cozy little place with fresh bread in the morning and cakes displayed in the window. People at church and in the neighborhood praised my baking during fundraisers and birthdays. They told me I should sell my treats, that I had a gift. I smiled and nodded, but deep down I knew it wasn't time yet. First the kids needed to grow, first David needed to be stable, first 1,000 other things. Somehow my turn never came. At family gatherings, I wore the mask of contentment. When friends asked how David's latest venture was going, I found polite ways to cover the truth. He's exploring his options, I would say. Or he's just trying something new. People chuckled, nodded, and moved on, never seeing how tired my eyes were after working late nights balancing our finances. Still, I believed loyalty mattered. I believed that when you vowed to build a life with someone, you kept building even when the bricks got heavy. I told myself David worked late for us, that the distance between us in the evenings was temporary, that one day when the kids were grown we would finally sit together with nothing left to sacrifice. I had no idea back then how wrong I was, because while I was busy holding everything steady, David was busy hiding something I never wanted to believe could be true. It began with numbers that didn't add up. Working at the bank for over 2 decades had trained my eyes to spot unusual patterns. 6 months before Ethan's wedding, I sat at the kitchen table late at night, reviewing our household account. At first, it was just small withdrawals, 200 here, 300 there. David always had an explanation ready: car maintenance, helping a friend, work expenses. But then the amounts grew larger, and the excuses thinner. One Saturday morning, after he left for what he called a networking brunch, I logged into our accounts more carefully than ever. I traced the transactions through transfers, then into a secondary account I had never seen before. The account was under David's name, but he had not mentioned it once in all our years of marriage. My chest tightened as I saw the balance. Tens of thousands moved there over time. This wasn't saving, it was siphoning. I could have confronted him right then. Instead, I waited. Maybe part of me already knew what the truth would be, and I needed proof. I began acting like a detective in my own home. Each evening I noted down his withdrawals. At work, I quietly ran reports, connecting the dots with precision. The story wrote itself: dinners at expensive restaurants, jewelry purchases, hotel stays. The money wasn't disappearing, it was being invested in someone who wasn't me. The final blow came on a Tuesday morning. David left his phone charging on the counter while he stepped outside to water the lawn. A text preview lit up the screen. Curiosity, or maybe survival instinct, made me pick it up. The messages were between David and Rebecca Moore, his secretary. They weren't shy about their intentions. He told her he couldn't wait until after Ethan's wedding, when he would finally set himself free. She responded with hearts and plans for a beachfront condo they would buy together. I stood frozen, the phone heavy in my hands. For years I had imagined Rebecca as simply efficient, polite, helpful. She had come to our home for dinner parties, laughed at my jokes, even complimented my roses in the garden. I had thought she was a friend. All the while, she was helping herself to my husband. It was more than betrayal. It was performance. David had been playing the part of loyal husband until the wedding was over, as though sparing our son embarrassment would make his infidelity noble. "I'll leave her after the celebration," one of his messages said. "She won't cause a scene in front of so many people." She never does. He thought he knew me. He thought I would sit quietly, absorb the humiliation, and step aside. What he forgot was that I wasn't just his wife, I was also a banker who understood paper trails, contracts, and consequences. That night, after Ethan and Emily went home from visiting, I sat in my bedroom with a notebook. I began outlining a plan, not a dramatic confrontation, not revenge with screaming or slammed doors. Something sharper, cleaner, and far more permanent. For the first time in years, I didn't feel powerless. I felt awake. The same woman who had balanced budgets, clipped coupons, and sacrificed her bakery dream was now preparing to protect herself. David thought he was orchestrating the timing of our ending, but in truth, I had just decided to orchestrate the beginning of mine. Once the shock passed, clarity set in. I had choices to make, and for the first time in decades, they would be mine alone. I didn't storm into David's office, I didn't throw his clothes on the lawn. Instead, I quietly began assembling the pieces of a strategy. At the bank, we used to say that financial security isn't built in a day, it's built with patience, with details, with persistence. That was exactly how I approached the plan that would change everything. The first step was legal. I remembered a document David had been insistent on when we married, a prenuptial agreement he drafted after his first wife betrayed him. He wanted to make sure no one could ever take advantage of him again. I was young, in love, and eager to prove my loyalty, so I signed without hesitation. But that very agreement, meant to shield him, contained a clause about faithfulness. If either spouse committed adultery, the guilty party forfeited nearly all joint assets. David never thought it would apply to him. He had forgotten his own safety net could become a snare. I pulled the old document from our safe deposit box, brushed off the dust, and read it word for word. The clause was still there, ironclad. It did not expire. I underlined it in red ink, my hands trembling not from fear but from relief. I wasn't powerless. I had leverage. The second step was evidence. Numbers alone could be explained away, but text messages and photos could not. I began compiling everything: screenshots of his account transfers, copies of jewelry receipts, even hotel bookings under his name. When he left his phone unattended again, I quietly forwarded key conversations to my email. His own words, his own promises to Rebecca, his own timeline of betrayal. The paper trail was undeniable. Next, I contacted an attorney, David Chen, a man I had worked with at the bank during estate settlements. He was discreet and thorough. I remember the calm way he looked at me across his office desk when I slid over the folder. "You've done half my job already," he said gently. "Most women who come here only have suspicions. You have a full case." For the first time in months, I allowed myself to smile. We drafted the divorce papers carefully, making sure every detail aligned with the prenuptial terms. Timing mattered. David wanted to wait until after Ethan's wedding to make his grand reveal, but I decided to file the morning of the ceremony. By the time the courthouse processed the paperwork, the news would be locked in place, irreversible, waiting for him like a shadow. He thought he was staging a dramatic ending in front of family and friends. What he didn't realize was that I had already written the script. The final piece was emotional. For years, I had been the peacemaker, the one who swallowed her words to keep the family intact. That night, as I sat with the envelope sealed and ready, I realized I wasn't seeking revenge for its own sake. I wasn't trying to destroy him in anger. I was protecting myself, my children, and the life I still wanted to live. This wasn't vengeance, it was liberation. When I slipped the envelope into my purse on the morning of the wedding, my heart was strangely calm. I had thought through every step. I had prepared for every outcome. Whatever David believed he was about to do, he was already 3 moves behind me, and that knowledge gave me more strength than I had felt in years. The moment at the wedding dinner felt surreal. Like I was watching a play I had already rehearsed 100 times in my mind. David stood tall, wine glass in hand, expecting applause for his courage to announce a new love. Rebecca shifted in her seat, her smile small but certain, as if she were about to inherit a crown. And I, the woman they believed would break down, simply slid the envelope across the table and wished everyone a pleasant evening. I walked out of that glittering ballroom with my head held high. Behind me, whispers rippled through the guests like waves. The heavy doors closed, and for the first time in months, I inhaled deeply, free from the weight of secrets. I had made my move. Minutes later, the doors burst open. David rushed after me into the hotel corridor, his face flushed with anger. "Linda, what is this?" he demanded, waving the envelope like it was a ticking bomb. "What did you do?" His voice cracked, the first hint that his performance had faltered. I turned slowly, meeting his eyes with a calmness he did not expect. "It's exactly what it looks like," I said. "The end. But on my terms, not yours." He laughed bitterly, trying to regain control. "You can't be serious. A divorce? Today? You're making yourself look foolish." "Am I?" I asked quietly. "Or are you the one who just confessed to betrayal in front of 100 people?" His jaw tightened. "The prenup expired years ago. You'll get nothing. My lawyer will prove it." I smiled, small and sharp. "You should read Section 15 again. The faithfulness clause is valid for the length of the marriage. It never expired." For the first time that night, the confidence drained from his face. He staggered back as if the hotel carpet had given way beneath him. "That's not possible," he whispered. "It is," I replied, "and I have every transfer, every receipt, every text message to prove your choices." He tried another tactic. "After 34 years, you'd throw it all away over one mistake." I stepped closer, lowering my voice so only he could hear. "A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is saying something cruel in anger. What you did was a plan. A year of lies, of stolen money, of building a life with her behind my back. That isn't a mistake. That's who you are." His hands trembled around the papers. "You don't understand. Rebecca and I." "I don't need to understand," I interrupted firmly. "The judge will. That's enough." At that moment, Mark, his younger brother, appeared from down the hall. He had followed us out of concern. When he saw the scene, David pale and frantic, me standing firm, he stopped. "Linda," he said gently, "I know about Rebecca. I saw them together last month. I asked David about it, and he lied to my face. You're not crazy. You're not overreacting." David spun toward his brother in shock. "You were supposed to be on my side." Mark folded his arms. "I'm on the side of truth." The silence that followed was heavier than anything said aloud. David realized, maybe for the first time, that the ground beneath him was truly crumbling. Not just his marriage, but his family, his reputation, his carefully built image. I took one last look at him, then walked toward the elevators. "Enjoy the rest of the evening, David," I said. "I'll see you in court." The doors slid closed between us, sealing the end of his charade and the beginning of my freedom. The fallout came quickly, faster than even I expected. By Monday morning, the courthouse had processed the filing, and the temporary orders were in place. Our joint accounts were frozen. The house remained under my control. David's lawyer, a young associate more versed in corporate contracts than family law, looked overwhelmed from the start. Every piece of evidence, bank transfers, credit card statements, screenshots of his late-night texts spoke louder than his excuses. The judge was a sharp woman with little patience for drama. She examined the prenuptial agreement, adjusted her glasses, and said, "The terms are clear. Infidelity has consequences." Her ruling kept the freeze on our accounts until full discovery was complete. She also ordered that the family home stay in my possession. I could almost hear the walls of David's carefully constructed world collapsing. Word spread quickly in our small community. Friends called, some offering sympathy, others fishing for gossip. I kept my answers simple. David and I are divorcing. These things happen. I refused to let my story become neighborhood entertainment. Still, people noticed the shift. The once confident businessman who strutted through town now looked diminished, shoulders slumped, smile forced. His reputation as a devoted husband and successful provider was gone. Rebecca did not last long at his side. Within 2 weeks she moved out of the apartment they had planned to share. She learned, as I had, that David's promises often outweighed his realities. Without access to our joint funds, he could not keep up the lifestyle he had dangled before her. She told mutual acquaintances she hadn't signed up for financial problems. The irony was bitter and almost laughable. Meanwhile, Ethan called often, his voice steady with support. "I'm proud of you, Mom," he told me. "You showed strength I didn't even know you had." His words healed something inside me that had been fractured for a long time. For once, I wasn't just the quiet peacemaker holding the family together. I was a woman who had stood her ground. The fallout wasn't just David's ruin, it was my rebirth. Starting over at 59 was not easy, but it was liberating. With the house secure and my finances untangled from David's chaos, I finally had space to breathe. For decades I had whispered about my dream of owning a bakery, always pushing it aside for someone else's needs. Now, nothing stood in my way. I rented a small storefront downtown, the kind with wide windows perfect for displaying cakes and bread. The first morning I turned the key, I felt lighter than I had in years. At first, I baked simple things: cinnamon rolls, cookies, loaves of bread. Neighbors who remembered my treats from school fundraisers came in with smiles. Word of mouth carried quickly, and soon I was making wedding cakes, birthday cakes, and anniversary desserts. Each order was more than just business, it was a reminder that my talents had value beyond the walls of my old kitchen. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was thriving. Ethan visited often, sometimes bringing friends from work who became loyal customers. Emily called to tell me how proud she was, promising to visit when her semester ended. Their support felt like sunlight after a long winter. I had worried they might resent me for keeping the divorce secret until after the wedding, but instead they understood. They saw that I had chosen their happiness first, just as I always had. As for David, his world shrank. Without access to the funds he once controlled, without Rebecca by his side, and without the admiration of neighbors, he was left with only his regrets. He tried to call, to reason, even to bargain, but I no longer owed him my time. Our 34 years together had ended the moment he chose betrayal over loyalty. Looking back, I realized something powerful: betrayal doesn't define us, but how we respond to it does. I could have broken, but instead I built something new. My bakery wasn't just a business, it was proof that starting again is always possible. To anyone listening who has felt dismissed, betrayed, or silenced, let my story be a reminder: your strength is still yours. I don't wait for permission to reclaim it. And if my journey resonated with you, I'd love for you to like, share, and comment below. Tell me where you're watching from, because together we're stronger than any betrayal. Thank you for watching this story on the art of revenge. Life often tests us in ways we never expect, but every ending can be the start of something stronger. If Linda's journey inspired you, don't forget to like this video, share it with a friend who might need encouragement, and subscribe to our channel. And please comment below to tell us where you're watching from. We love reading every story and every city that joins our community. Until next time, remember, silence is not weakness, and resilience is its own kind of revenge.